Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Free Hour. It's your boy Trevor Turner, back with another video on the Free Hour ABCs, the ABCs of Tree. And my bad, let me just adjust that real quick. We get it going. You know, we looking good. We getting ready for this trip to Texas. Finally getting to see my moms and pops. It's been a minute. It's been some years since I seen my family. Get to see my little brother. Get to see my niece. Get to see my nephew. And might go check out UTEP, all of that. You know, it's going to be great. But before I went, I wanted to knock this video out the way. Obviously, I'm going to give you guys maybe something while I'm out there. And then kind of give you some more updates on stuff because, you know, stuff's been going on. It's the summer, you know, stuff going on with my parole, stuff going on with, you know, a whole bunch of different stuff. So, but let's get to this, man. We with the Free Hour ABCs, the ABCs of Tree, and we made it to the letter R. And this video is going to be, it's going to be deep, man. It's going to be super heavy. It's going to be super important because today we're talking about a topic that like touches a lot of us, touches all of our lives very deeply. It's a topic that a lot of us have run across. A lot of us have engaged in this. I'm going to say that 90% of the people watching this video are not naive to what we're going to be talking about. They're not naive to how these things can affect us both positively and negatively. We're talking about relationships. For letter R, we're talking about relationships. And this video was so important for me just because obviously, like a lot of other people, string of negative relationship after negative relationship. Not their fault, 100%. My fault as well. My picker is messed up. I haven't necessarily had the full broad spectrum of positive relationships to base myself off of, right? So I have been the toxic one as well. You know, there was me and my homeboys, we would joke around a lot. Red means go. You know, red means go. If she was a green flag, she was boring. If she was a red flag, we was all for it. Treat her like a foreign, you know what I'm saying? So we are going to talk about something that a lot of us have been in and a lot of us are learning to navigate. A lot of us are learning to navigate in a more positive way, especially coming off of bad relationships. This is like emotionally charged. A lot of us are fearful. A lot of us are trying to heal. A lot of us are trying to just figure it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into why relationships are important. We're going to talk about how to heal from the past. We're going to talk about identifying signs of healthy partners. And we're going to talk about how to foster relationships that don't just last, but enrich our lives as well. Because relationships are there to enrich both of those person's lives. And we're going to talk about how to build those. We're not going to necessarily, you know, talk about how it looks 30, 40 years down the line, but we're going to talk about how to lay the foundation for them today. So let's jump in. Let's talk about why they're important. Relationships aren't just part of our lives. They're central to our well-being. As John Donne famously said, no man is an island. Our connections can lift us to our highest highs, but they can also bring us to our lowest lows. Anybody who has been in a relationship knows that the other person, that person sitting across the table from you, that person that you share your bed with, that person that you share your life with, can literally bring the best out of you, or they can bring the worst out of you. In the dance of life, relationships are the steps that make the journey worthwhile. A lot of us are chasing something. A lot of us are pursuing something. And even Napoleon Hill said this in Think and Grow Rich, that most successful men, the reason that they were able to achieve what they achieved is because they had somebody that they were in love with or attracted to behind the motivations and the reasoning for why they were doing what they were doing. Okay? Studies have consistently shown that healthy relationships improve our mental, emotional, even physical health. It is consistently shown the importance of relationships for overall well-being. And I'm going to break down a couple of key studies, right? Because I really want to lay down the foundation. I really want to hammer home why relationships, committed relationships with a person, are so important. Because a lot of us, especially this generation, even my generation, because I'm like on the very back end of this generation that I'm in. We are abandoning relationships, like almost wholesale. We are abandoning relationships. We are wondering why they're so important. We're wondering what is the point, because we have seen so many relationships fail. But the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest running studies on adult life, began in 1938. This research has proved insights into what factors are most important for long-term well-being. And one of the major findings is that close relationships, more than money, more than fame, are what keep people happy throughout their lives. The study showed that those who are most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. The quality of these relationships was a better predictor of long life and good health than even cholesterol levels. Having someone in your corner, having someone that you can share that life with and share that purpose with and share that motivation with, share your successes with, help shoulder the failures and the setbacks, was something that was more conducive to good health than lowering cholesterol levels. And then we talk about a meta-analysis published in the PLOS Medicine, analyzed data from 148 studies. So they took a lot of their secondary findings involving over 300,000 participants. It found that individuals with adequate connections or relationships have a 50% greater likelihood of survival compared to those with poor or insufficient connections or relationships. And the magnitude of this percentage is basically comparable with quitting smoking. People who have adequate connections or adequate relationships, it was comparable to quitting smoking when it comes to survival rates. And it exceeds many well-known risk factors for mortality, such as obesity and physical inactivity. Not saying that you can find somebody that you fuck with and just grow old and grow fat together and y'all gonna live forever. But that's why you see like people who engage in so many unhealthy behaviors, but they got somebody in their corner, they thrive somehow, some way, shape, form, or fashion. And if you are pursuing something, if you are pursuing a higher calling, or if you are pursuing health, or you are pursuing wealth, and you have somebody in your corner, the chances of getting there are exponential. Your chances of even survival are exponential. And research consistently shows that supportive relationships help reduce the prevalence and severity of mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And this is one of the things that I see floating around on the internet a lot when we talk about the male loneliness epidemic. Men now are finding 100% through anecdotal evidence the truth of studies like that. The truth of the fact that if you are not in relationships, if you are not involved with people on a close enough level, that you will literally succumb to almost any mental type of condition. These studies, they underscore the profound impact that relationships can have on physical health. Relationships improve not only our physical health, but our mental well-being, our longevity, the overall quality of life. When you have somebody in your corner, when you have somebody there for you, when you have somebody that you can share these things with, when you have somebody who can help shoulder these other burdens, life gets better. Life just gets better. Physically, mentally, emotionally, life gets better. When you have somebody who can even share on a materialistic level, when you have somebody who can help shoulder the load and bear that burden, life gets better. That's how you build generational wealth. That's how when you have kids and you have somebody with you, those kids end up better. You end up better. Everything ends up better. That's why relationships are so important. And I think the fact that we are abandoning relationships on such a wholesale level is a testament to why people are so bitter, why people are so depressed, why people have so much anxiety, why people worry so much about the future, and why people regret the past so much. A lot of us, because we don't have that anchor, we don't have that person to help keep us grounded in reality, but that person who is also going to shoot us and propel us and launch us to the moon when we need to get there. We're worried about whether we're going to succeed. We're worried about whether we're going to be able to handle things, is because we don't have anybody in our corner. We're finding that out. As people are abandoning relationships wholesale, we are finding that out firsthand. It's not even just about studies no more. People are seeing this and people are noticing this. Everybody who's talking about fuck relationships, men and women, they are miserable. They're fucking miserable. People who don't have nobody in their corner, who don't want nobody in their corner, even by choice, you're still fucking miserable. You're lonely. And don't try to fucking sit here and tell me that you're not. Don't try to sit here and tell me that you're just the most healthy person and that you have this glow just because you know that you're alone. You may have that one because you've left something toxic and something poisonous to your health, so you're getting that quick boost. But over the long term, you need to find somebody. And while I'm not one of those people who's going to be here to argue relationship dynamics or roles. First of all, I don't subscribe or ascribe to roles or anything like that. I subscribe to the benefits of being in relationships with people, the benefits of being in loving and supporting relationships with people. How you want to make that happen is completely up to you. I don't subscribe to all this other bullshit that's going on. I'm just talking about why relationships are important, why it's important to have somebody with you and really with you, not that toxic shit where you're with somebody, but to have somebody with you. So next, we're going to talk about what happens when past relationships have left scars. And this is why a lot of people are abandoning relationships, because relationships can hurt us the most. The things that make us the happiest can hurt us the most, obviously. But when we talk about healing, it's not just about moving on. It's about moving forward with intention. It's about not looking back. It's about moving forward. If you find yourself reacting to memories more than living in the moment, it's time to address these emotional echoes. When you think about relationships, when you think about somebody you might have met, when you think about engaging in activities with other people on a relationship level, and the first thing that comes to mind is what that dude did to hurt you, or what that woman did that broke your heart, or the fact that somebody cheated on you, or the fact that somebody ghosted you, and you apply that lens to everything because that's the first thing you think about, that's when it's time to address those issues. That's when it is time to heal. Healing might involve therapy. It might involve things as simple as meditation or talking it out with friends and family. It might involve journaling. But one of the things that I was able to do to heal is I was able to identify my emotions, identify the way I feel, latch on to the feelings that I would have physically, latch on to those things to be able to identify when my feelings were acting up, to be able to identify what was triggering these feelings and what was bringing them about, to identifying the root of those feelings. Because when we talk about a lot of our feelings, especially when they come to relationships, we have to look at it in terms of an iceberg. Now, an iceberg, we see the tip of it, but beneath the water, there's a much bigger mass of it that you cannot see. So when you start to think about feelings, when you start to think about those emotional echoes as they come in terms of relationships, or they come in terms of dealing with other people, you have to go down and you have to say, okay, the tip might be jealousy. The tip might be sadness. The tip might be this, but you have to go back down and say, okay, these are the reasons that lead up to those things, whether it be abandonment issues, whether it be childhood traumas, whether it be not seeing any healthy relationships, so you ascribe that to and put that lens over healthy relationships, whether it was the feeling of being betrayed, that heartbreak, those scars that lead up to these other things. So remember, the wound is the place where the light enters you. So one of the things that I like to think about when I think about relationships is I like to think about Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley, I believe he's a pastor, and he did a lesson on blue beads and pink beads. And blue beads and pink beads, he had these two cups that were completely full of blue beads, completely full of pink beads. And so these two people had met after college. They were engaging in this relationship. Everything was going smooth sailing. They were still in their little honeymoon phase. And then they got married and actually went through their real honeymoon phase. And then they had their first major shakeup, their first major collision, their first major disagreement. And what happened when they had that is that all of these beads just exploded out of both of these cups. The blue beads out of the man, the pink beads out of the woman. And what they told each other, what they looked at each other and said is, wow, look at what you brought out of me. Look at what you made me do. Look at what you made me feel. And the thing that we need to think about when we talk about healing is that these things don't come out because the other person made them come out. These things don't manifest because the other person made them manifest. These things popped out because they were already there. And that's just so simple, but it's something that we don't think about. When we think about baggage, we think that it's the other person's responsibility to help us unpack that baggage. We also somehow, and for some reason, believe that this baggage that we carry into the relationship is somehow that new person's fault. When that person trips over the suitcase, the big ass suitcase that we got rolling behind us, or we get these beads knocked out of us, or we get these feelings that just jump out of us with somebody that we just met, we somehow ascribe it to them. We somehow say, you brought that out of me. You were capable and you had the power in my life to bring those feelings about. And the problem is that we haven't taken the time to unpack any of our blue beads. We haven't taken the time to unpack any of the baggage that we have from old relationships. One of the things we need to do is we need to look at, are we living in the past? Not are we living like wishing we still had that old thing back? Not like saying like, oh, yearning for that old person or reminiscing about that old person constantly. When I say living in the past, I'm saying, do we look at our future situations or our current situations or relationships through the lens of what that other person in the past did to us? Are we listening to the echoes of our past emotional hurts, right? That's where we need to start unpacking. That's where we need to start saying, okay, look, I went on that trip. It was a great trip. I loved it while I was there. When I came back from that trip, I was, disappointed. I was going through some stuff. I went to my baggage claim and I got my stuff. At what point do you get home and you say, you know what, maybe it's time to unpack this? Maybe it's time to unpack all of these things out of those bags so that way when I go on the next trip, I don't have everything that I had packed from that old trip. It's like trying to say if you go to Barbados and you have all the scuba gear and you have the goggles and you have the snorkel and you have all the swim trunks and you have everything ready for that summer trip, but then taking those same bags when you go on that winter trip to Iceland to see the Northern Lights or something like that. And you have all of this stuff that does not fit your new situation, that does not fit your new desired outcomes, but you somehow and for some reason still brought them with you. It's at that point that you have to say, you know what? I need to unpack. I need to put those things away. I need to say that these things, either one, they no longer serve me, or I'm no longer going to let them affect me. And one of the things that I tell people, and because I'm very good with setting boundaries now, is I will tell people as I'm going into relationships with them that I do not jump through hoops. And I especially do not jump through hoops or try to break down walls that were put up behind what some dude did that he did not have to jump through those same hoops. You're not going to make me jump through hoops behind a dude that didn't have to jump through no hoops. It's just not happening because I am a different person. I do things differently. And one of the things that we have to realize, we need to unpack those beads enough to where we can either let the other person pour into us. Because if you are so full of all this other stuff, you are not even going to allow that other person to pour into you. Like, yeah, obviously, when you unpack these things, when you unpack your past and you start opening up your walls and start just doing boundaries instead of walls, or maybe having a window instead of a solid wall, obviously that person is going to be able and be capable to put more in you. And some of those things might bring up negative emotions, might bring up negative reactions. But if they can't pour anything into you, period, then they will never be able to pour anything into you positive either. All right. And one of the ways that we do that is we recognize those feelings. We be present. We recognize the places that our emotions are taking us. So first of all, you have to grab onto and latch onto the way that you feel when certain things happen. And a lot of these instances, your physical is going to react as well. That's how you recognize, like, okay, emotions are happening. My hands are clenched up. My breath is getting shallow. I'm not breathing as deeply as before. Maybe I'm not breathing at all. Or maybe I feel that whole tightness right here. Or maybe I feel that thump in my chest that one time or that feeling in the pit of my stomach that I know is related to something that somebody else did. And you say, okay, so I got that feeling when this happened. Now, what about that brought me there? And what about being there, or what does being there translate into up here? It could be a fear thing. We always just jump to anger. He made me angry. She made me angry. It could be fear. It could be insecurity. It could be feelings of inadequacy. It could be pride. It could be so many different things. And then you have to say, okay, well, what caused these feelings to be in there to begin with? And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, if you have been in a relationship before, 9 times out of 10, if that relationship ended badly, or if there were bad things that happened during that relationship, even if you decided to part ways amicably, but you decided to part ways because things were not working out, because things were happening in the relationship that were making you feel a certain type of way that was not conducive to your health, emotional, physical, mental, whatever, right? Those things will bring about feelings, and it will not be even about what your new partner is doing or what the person you're talking to is doing. It will be about that. And you have to unpack that. You have to process that. You have to accept the fact that you feel those things so you can move on. You have to accept the fact you cannot change the past, and accept the fact you can't worry about the future. And you have to move on, and you have to figure out how to process those feelings. You have to figure it out, whether it's journaling, meditation, but you can't just ignore them. You can't just ignore them and act like they don't exist, and act like, you know what, I'm not with that person no more, so I'm with this new person. There's no way that what that old person did to me is going to affect me. And then that person who told you he was out playing pool with the homies and cheated on you is going to completely affect this new person that you're with that actually goes out and plays pool with the homies. Because every time he tells you he's going to play pool with the homies, your heart is going to get tight in your chest and you're going to be like, this motherfucker right here. And because you haven't unpacked it, that relationship will be negative. You will bring that toxicity into it. So now that we've done our healing, we've done our stuff, how do we know when we're ready to start? And this is something I've been wrestling with, me personally, a lot. Because even being in NA, one of the things that they say is that you don't try to start dating anybody. You don't try to start hollering at nobody. You don't allow anybody into your life in any type of situations that involve feelings for like at least a year. Now, mind you, I've been clean for like, coming up on 3. So, but some of that was prison time. Not around people of the opposite gender, not around people of the opposite sex, not around the people I'm attracted to, right? Not around women. So one of the things that happens is when I get out and I start dealing with women, I start getting those emotional echoes. And now I'm putting all these things into practice, all of my tools, I'm unpacking everything, I'm getting to the blue beads. So now it's like, well, when do we find out, or when do we know that we can actually try to start something new? It's when your past stops being a daily conversation and starts becoming a rare mention. It's when you stop living in that regret. It's when you stop living with everything being put through the lens of the past. It's when you can start looking at situations with hope. And it's when you feel that your happiness is no longer a negotiation with memories, no longer a risk. It's when you feel that your happiness is no longer a negotiation with memories, no longer a risk. That is when you know that you can start to do things in a new way. When you start to look at this other person and the cologne that they wear doesn't remind you of somebody else. When you start to look at this other person and the type of style that they got does not remind you of somebody else. Or at least somebody else in that way. It could be like, you know what, he kind of dressed like my cousin. Or she kind of dresses like this girl I knew in high school. Like, I think it was kind of cool. But that girl I knew in high school doesn't trigger emotional echoes. That girl that I knew doesn't trigger that tightness in my chest. It didn't hurt me. It's not something that I wish I could still have. It's not something I wish didn't happen. It's just something that is there. When she walks by, I don't think about all the females that wore that type of perfume. I don't think about all the females I've seen in that shirt before I've been with. I don't think about, oh, when she comes out with a new hairstyle, does that look like my ex's hairstyle? I think about the hope that I could have with this person. When I look at this person and I see only that person, I smell only that person, I hear only that person in the way that they talk and the things that they do and their interests and their hobbies, their goals, their dreams. I don't equate those things with those emotional echoes no more. And that is when we know that we're ready to move on. That is when we know that we've at least started to process things enough to where we're not living with those emotional echoes. We're not living with those things through the lens of our past experiences. Not saying that that's the end all be all, not saying that, oh, hey, I've done it. I did the work. That's all I got to do. No, because once you start getting into things and once things start to get more emotionally charged, things are going to happen. You're going to have that friction. You're going to knock against each other and you might knock against each other hard enough. So let's say your cup is this big and you only have this many beads left in it. You might knock against each other hard enough that those beads still come out. The work is not done. The work is never done. If you have been in past hurtful relationships, or if you have had childhood trauma, or if you haven't lived a perfect life, the work is not done. You have to constantly keep going for it. And all that shit that I said at the beginning of why relationships are important should show you why it is important to do it, to show you why it's worth it to keep working. Because if you're going to keep working on your dreams and your goals, why wouldn't you keep working on this? Why wouldn't you keep working on legacy? Why wouldn't you keep working on the people who are going to be in your life for the long haul? So now let's talk about identifying healthy partners. We're just going to be talking about red flags and green flags here. I'm going to give you a list, explain a few of them, and we're going to just get to it. The right person will prove themselves. First of all, the right person does not diminish your inner peace. So let's talk about green flags. They make time. Number one, they make time. Now, a lot of people, we're chasing things, we're doing things, we're working, we're very busy. Like this is probably the busiest we've ever been as a people, a society. Just because we're living in a time where we don't really have the capability to have the time to do anything else except work and go to school or work and go home and that's all we got to do just to survive, right? If you are a person who even has a spare hour, even has a spare 30 minutes, even has a spare 2 hours, and they don't separate out some of that for you, then they're not making time for you. And if we look at it through the lens of even positivity, we go back to the 7 habits of highly effective people. What Covey did when he made his quadrant-based time management system, when he would schedule out time for the week, he would literally say that none of these things are going to be set in stone because people are the most important. The people that you deal with, having interdependence is not just about independence. Independence is not the highest form or the pinnacle of human achievement or the attitude of living. It's interdependence. It's being able to be independent, but still being able to operate, interact with, work with, live with, deal with, and contribute to other people. That is the highest form. So when we make our time schedules, we leave room for other people. And if we're leaving room for other people, you're definitely going to leave room for the person who is somebody you're trying to show is important to you. Somebody you're trying to set up a foundation for having in your life in that way. And a lot of the times what happens now is we are so used to people who don't make time for us that we will chase the people who don't make time. We look at the people who do make time, the people who reply fast, the people who are accessible to us. Not necessarily accessible to us 24/7, but we know when their free time is, and during their free time, they are accessible to us. And we look at that like it's boring. We've actually somehow we've been twisted into looking at as like a red flag. But that's a green flag. They make time. Next, they're self-aware. They're self-aware. A lot of these green flags, or at least the beginning of them, they're going to be about how this person relates to themselves. When you look at somebody who is not self-aware, if they're not aware of what's going on within themselves, that means they've done no work, they've done no introspection. That means that person is probably going to flip out on you over some shit that Danielle did way back in the day. They're going to flip out on you over some shit that Johnny did way back in the day. They're not self-aware of what they even have going on within themselves. They're not aware of what it is that they are going to bring to you as a benefit. But guess what? They're also not aware of the things that they want out of a relationship. They're not aware of the things that they need and require from another person. And since they're not aware of it, guess what they can't do? They can't tell you what it is. All they can do is just trip and have attitude and treat you like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing when they haven't even told you what it is you're supposed to be doing. That's why self-awareness is important. Next, they have good relationship with friends and family. And this one just goes back to the fact, remember how they used to say, if you want to see how good a man is going to treat you, watch how he treats his moms. It's the same thing. If someone has good relationships with the people that they love, the people that they didn't choose, and then the people that they chose, if they don't have good relationships or good friendships, then they have issues with people in relating to people. They have issues with emotional attachment. They have issues with those things. They need to have good relationships with those other people. Next, committed to personal growth. This person, a green flag, is a person who's trying to be better. Personally, in every way, not for you, but for themselves. That's about personal growth. When you're meeting somebody for the first time and you catch them on the middle of their journey upward, that's a green flag. But when you meet somebody who feels like they got everything kind of figured out, and not up to your standards, but just up to like the standards of just in general, they don't. And they're not committed to like growing. They're not committed to getting better. And I'm not talking about in a materialistic way. I'm not talking about in getting a higher paycheck or getting a better job or always seeking promotion or trying to start a business. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about getting better emotionally. I'm talking about getting better physically. I'm talking about getting better mentally. If they think they got it all figured out and they not Jesus, then they don't have that green flag. Someone who is committed to personal growth, getting in better shape, getting their health right, getting their mind right, getting their emotions right, getting their spiritual right. If they're committed to growing, even if it's in a very small way, every day or every week or every month, every year, that's a green flag. Kind. Someone who is kind for no reason or no agenda. Someone who is kind, and this is what I talked about in the video on kindness. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch that. The difference between being kind and being nice. The red flag person is going to be nice to you, but not nice or kind to anybody else. The green flag person is kind to everybody. He takes you out on a date and he's kind to the waiters and waitresses. He's kind to the person at the bar. He's kind to the valet if you get your car valet parked. He's kind to his coworkers. He is kind to everybody that comes around and that you interact with. Everybody says, you know what, he's actually pretty good. He's a good dude. He's nice. He's kind. He doesn't expect nothing from me behind it either. He does kind acts for people just because. That's a green flag. Next, and this one goes along with the personal growth, they have goals. If someone ain't going nowhere in life, they ain't going to be able to take you nowhere in life either. And that comes from men and women. Women need to have goals as well to be a green flag. If you meet a woman and she has no goals, that's a red flag. If you meet a man and he has no goals, that's definitely a red flag. They have to not only be committed to personal growth, but they have to have goals. They have to have a place that they're trying to go. And goals are equated with a purpose. And this ties into the next red flag. They celebrate your wins. If somebody doesn't have goals, they can't celebrate your wins because they feel like you're leaving them behind. They feel like it's a race instead of saying, you know what, we're in this together going towards an end destination. You need to be able to celebrate your wins. One of the things that I found, and I actually watched a video on it, is that they were talking about the fact that it was a group of people that they did a study on. When someone came home to their partner and gave them good news, it was like a super high percentage of people actually got feelings of jealousy when their partner was telling them that they were winning. That's a red flag. A green flag is somebody who not only celebrates your goals, but helps you celebrate it. A person whose eyes light up when you tell them good news and they, oh shit, what are we gonna do? We gotta do something. That was fucking amazing. How did you do that? Congratulations, you did that. People who celebrate your wins. And then also, someone who supports your goals. They can't do this if they don't have goals themselves. If somebody doesn't have any goals, they're never going to be able to support your goals because they don't see the purpose of them. They don't see the purpose of the personal growth. They don't see the purpose of attainment. They don't see the purpose of achievement. But somebody who does, they're going to see the purpose of it for themselves. But the green flag is also to see the purpose of it for you. So what is your goals? What are your dreams? What is it that you're trying to get to? Where is it that you're trying to go? How can I help you get there? What is it that I have to do to set you up to win? So that way, when you do win, we can celebrate them things together. Another green flag, they remember small things about you. And this is something that I have learned is very rare. Not only in my interactions with people, when they remember things about me and just how shocked I am, like how much, like even people at work in school, I tell them, oh, this is my favorite anime right here. And then somebody comes and tells me, oh yeah, I tried watching your favorite anime, blah, blah, blah. And they say it like I should have expected them to remember it. So it's like, wait, you know my favorite anime? It's like, of course I know your favorite anime. The fact that that is so shocking to me just shows like how rare it is and why it's a green flag. Because it makes you feel good when people remember little things about you. It makes you feel good when you've told somebody this is what you're trying to do, or you've told somebody, oh yeah, I went and did this yesterday and I was kind of feeling blah, blah, blah. And they remember it. It feels good. It's a green flag, but that means that they also have an interest in you. They're curious about you, which is the next green flag. When someone's curious about you, when someone wants to know what makes you tick, when someone wants you to know how you feel about things, when someone wants to know about your favorite foods, a lot of times when we get into that talking stage, this is where we find the difference. This is where we find whether someone's going to remember those things about you, whether they're going to be curious about you, whether they're really trying to find out about you. And I'm not talking about the superficial. I'm not talking about that regular level, scratch the surface stuff. I'm talking about those people who are really into you, like really wanting to dig into you and ask you a whole bunch of different questions and find out everything they can about you. That's a green flag. Next, they respect your boundaries. They respect the fact that you have boundaries. Period. They're not going to say, look, you shouldn't have these boundaries. You shouldn't have these things that you want me to maneuver around, these things that you want me to fit myself into. You shouldn't have those things. That's not respecting boundaries. Like when I said earlier that I won't jump through hoops that you put up because that other dude hurt you. The other dude who didn't have to jump through no hoops, right? Now, when I said that, I didn't make any comments about whether it was right or wrong. And I know a lot of people probably were like, or anybody watched the video, they're probably like, yeah, that's right. That's right. No, that's a red flag. Like, you have to respect the fact that people have boundaries. You have to respect the fact that people have taken the time to kind of say, hey, this is what I don't like. You have to respect the fact that people have taken the time to say, this is not something that's good for me, and I'm not going to allow it into my life. Next, you feel energized after seeing them. And that's just simple. these people don't take from you. They don't take or dampen your energy. They don't make you feel like it was a chore to have to be around them. You feel good after you see them. You're not ready to just go to sleep for a week and never come out the room. Unless, they put that shit down real good. But when you're just talking to them, you feel energized, like you take on the world. They listen without being defensive. Green flag. And this is where we get into emotional intelligence. A lot of people don't have emotional intelligence. A lot of people only have one aspect of it, because there's really two aspects of emotional intelligence. A lot of people only have one. Either you are good at expressing your emotions, or you are being good at being receptive to other people's emotions. Now, listening without being defensive is half of that. It is being able to be receptive to other people's emotions. It's being able to sit there and listen when somebody dumps everything that they're feeling on you and not taking it personally, not assuming that it's because of your shortcomings, not assuming that it's an attack, but saying, okay, this is how this person feels, and I'm just going to listen to it. I'm going to let them vent and get it off their chest. I'm not going to take it as an attack. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not even going to look at it as something that I have to solve. I'm going to look at it as something that just is, and I can't change it. And since I can't change it, I'm not going to be defensive about it. I'm going to be attentive. I'm going to validate those feelings, but I am not going to get my guard up because this person feels something. That's a green flag. And then the next aspect of it, when you're emotionally expressive, is you are able to communicate your feelings, but not in a crazy, not crazy, that's not the word to say. Yeah, not in a crazy way, not in a crazy ass way, not in an exploding way. You don't just blow up every time you feel something. You don't just, every time you feel something, start screaming and start yelling and start acting a fucking fool. You're able to communicate your emotions in an emotionally stable way, in a clear way, in an intentional way, in a conscious way. Next, they allow you to be fully yourself. Oh, and real quick, actually, if you're able to do both of those things, that is a sign of emotional intelligence. Being able to express emotions is not emotional intelligence. Being receptive to emotions is not emotional intelligence. It is both. And being able to control your emotions, being able to identify but not let them take you for a ride. That's emotional intelligence. So many people think I can tell you what I'm feeling. That's not emotional intelligence. I can tell you what I'm feeling. I can be receptive to what you're feeling, and I cannot be reactive based upon what I'm feeling. And those are just literally only the starts of being emotional intelligent. I'll probably make a video in Texas about emotional intelligence. Next, they allow you to be fully yourself, and they make you feel safe. You're not trying to change the person. The person ain't a project, period. A lot of times we see, like, would you take this person? Would you be with this type of person? Yeah, if I could make them. No, that is not making the person be themselves and feel safe. One of the things you have to look for the personal growth, and you have to look for the goals. You don't have to instill those in other people and make them be into something else that they aren't. And then making them feel safe is validation for who they are, validation for the things that they like, validation for the way that they feel. They have to be able to come and holler at you about some shit that went down without you trying to say, well, what did you do? And you don't have to watch what you say. I don't have to walk on eggshells around you because of the way that you react. I don't have to walk on eggshells around you because of your jealousy or your past issues. When you met me, I had a friend at work. When you met me, I like to go and do these things. I like to go out and be in public and go out to these places, right? I don't have to watch what I say around you. I can tell you, yeah, I did this and I talked to this person and this happened and I felt this way about it and blah, blah, blah. And you don't react in a negative way. You're honest about your wants and needs. You communicate. I said that. Collaboration on decisions. Being able to come together is a green flag. Being able to say that this person's opinion, what this person has to say, this woman's wisdom, this man's guidance, any way that you want to put it, right? That person is in my life for a reason. And it's not just the way that they look. It's the things that they have to say, and it's the things that they think and the things that they believe, and I am going to come together with them on decisions. And someone who is willing and capable of doing that is a green flag. Words match actions. Consistency, period. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I tell you that I feel like this way, but the shit that I'm doing makes you obvious that I don't feel this type of way, that's not a green flag. Last one, they support you having your own life. And they have one too. They have their own friends. They have their own things that they like to do. They don't have to just say, you're my everything and my only, and I don't ever want to be away from you, and I always have to be around you. No, you have your own life. You have your own things that you're doing, and so do I. And you support that. You not only allow it, but you support it. Because, well, you can't say allow, because I'm not going to let a motherfucker tell me what I can and can't do when it comes to having my own life, period. But supporting it is the green flag. Positive partners will inspire more smiles than frowns, more hope than despair. Look, they're out there. They're often in places that reflect the best parts of us as well. So when we talk about the red flags, let's get into some of the red flags. Red flags, they don't come dressed as villains. They come as too familiar feelings. They suggest this is just how it goes. It doesn't have to, though. If someone frequently disrespects you, makes you question your worth, or isolates you from loved ones, these are major red flags and major signs to walk away. Remember, your first commitment is to yourself. So let's get into these red flags. First one, love bombing. And the reason I said it first is because love bombing is when somebody just bombards you with all that shit right at the beginning. It's like when you have sex with the girl for the first time and she says, I love you. You didn't fall in love with me, you fell in love with a condom. Or when that man is coming to you saying, you know what, you're so much better than all my exes, and I just feel like this could go so many places and everything, and I just met you today. Love bombing is not a good thing. When they're trying to pour all those things, is they're trying to replace that person or fill that void that they haven't filled in themselves with you immediately. It's because they're lacking in a lot of different ways, and it's just not going to end up well, period. Next, lack of appreciation. This is a lack of appreciation not only for the things that you do, but a lack of appreciation for the differences between the two of you. People are different. When I have someone in my life, in that way, they are going to be different from me. They're going to do things differently. They might have a different love language than I have. They might do things in an effort to either impress me, win me over, make me feel good, make me feel loved, whatever the case. And because it ain't my love language, I'm going to say, that don't mean shit. No. You have to have appreciation for the things that people do, for the things that people bring to the table in their own way, and for the differences. Boundary crossing. This is even worse than not acknowledging the fact that people are allowed to have boundaries. It's like, okay, so you got boundaries. I know that is a boundary. And because you told me it's a boundary, I'm going to go ahead and say, no, I'm going to go ahead and cross that. So it's like all this other stuff you said you was cool with, but you don't like this. So I'm going to do that. And I've had relationships that were like that. I've had relationships where I told her hey, this in particular is what I don't like. Like all this other stuff you do, I'm so cool with, I'm so great with. It's amazing and I love it. But this right here is something I don't like. I didn't like it when you did it. I'm just going to say, hey, I'm not upset with you because I didn't communicate it. I didn't know it would be a thing until it happened. And it happened and I'm saying, hey, can you please not? And she's like, okay, that's fine. It's not even that big of a deal. It's not something I do all the time. So I'll work on it. Okay, boom. And then the next day she do the same thing. And I tell her again, okay, look, I told you this was a boundary. Next day she do the same thing. Next week she do the same thing. Next week she do the same thing. It's something that she does habitually, knowing that it's a boundary. And that's a red flag. It's like habitually stepping over the line. Like, I don't like threats. So because you threaten me, I'm going to just do it. Red flag. Lack of clear communication. When someone gets mad at you or upset with you for something you did, but they never told you that it was something that was going to make them upset, That's a lack of clear communication. And then on top of that, after you've done it and they get upset and you say, okay, well, what about it was made you upset? And they're not able to tell you why. That's not a relationship that's going to go very far. It's not a relationship that's going to go very far in your favor anyway. It might go in theirs, like if you stick around, but it's not going to go well for you. Unwillingness to compromise. Unwillingness to compromise on little shit, unwillingness to compromise on big major shit, unwillingness to see another person's point of view, and unwillingness to put yourself in someone else's shoes. That's a red flag. Gaslighting. And this is something I do to my one of my coworkers all the time. I gaslight the shit out of her just for fun. Just because like she has been in a string of relationships where she constantly let people gaslight her. So I do it to her all the time, just so she can like finally see like, hey, I don't like this shit, right? And it's fun. But then also, it's a red flag. Gaslighting people, invalidating people's decisions. I'm sorry I made you feel, I'm sorry you feel like that. Shit like that. Inconsistency. Hot and cold shit. Like being one way one day and being another way the next day, liking this one day and then not liking this another day, being all up on you one day and just wanting all sorts of public displays of affection, but then the next day you're just like, yeah, I'm kind of cool off you, and nah. That's a red flag. That is a red flag. Whether they're doing it intentionally or unintentionally, it's a red flag. It's something that's not going to go away. Put downs. One of the things that I've seen is that there are a lot of people who do not know how to build other people up. Not only are there a lot of people who do not know how to build other people up, there are a lot of people out there who do not want to build other people up because they look at themselves in a poor light. And because they look at themselves as here, they don't want you being here. And if they're here and they see you as here, what they will do is, instead of doing the work to get themselves up to here, they will do whatever it takes to bring you down to their level. And those people are a red flag. These people also do stuff like this, like controlling. These people do controlling behavior. And one of the things that I've seen lately, actually, that I fucking don't like, but then remember, I don't subscribe to gender roles and shit like that, because I don't subscribe to the gender roles of a group of people that forced it onto another group of people. I just don't fucking do that shit, right? I don't like the idea of saying like, hey, if somebody does all of this for you and somebody does all of that for you and they take care of all these things, they're gonna tell you what the fuck to do. There's a difference between being controlling, and there's a difference between offering guidance, leadership, support, structure, provision. There's a complete difference. And a lot of times we do not know the fucking difference. We have come from and this relates back to childhood trauma. We have come from such bad, poor backgrounds, negative backgrounds, that we think guidance is control. We think control is guidance, my fault, because we have never been offered support. We have never been offered provision. We have never been offered any of those things. We have only been controlled and told what to do and forced into certain ways and forced into certain paths. And one of the things we need to do is we need to say, okay, we need to unpack all of this shit. And we need to say, is this controlling behavior, or is this positive guidance? Is this positive support? Is this positive structure? And that's something that needs to be done every day, because not blaming the people who do it, not blaming the people who want to step into that role and say, this is what I expect from my person, because that is an okay way to feel. That is an okay way to approach things. It's just that a lot of times our examples have been negative. So when we come with the intention of offering that structure, we come with that intention and we end up being controlling. We have to taper that down. We have to get rid of certain aspects of it. Next is alienation. And this goes along with controlling, because when someone tries to alienate you or drive a wedge with you between your loved ones, it's like, I've had a lot of relationships where they see my boys and stuff and they're like, oh, I don't like them, I don't want you around them. Or they don't even say that, but every time I try to go around them, it's a problem. That's a red flag. Lying. Someone is dishonest. It is a red flag. It's just period. They're going to be dishonest about everything. If they lie about this, they're going to lie about that. If they lie needlessly, If they lie about important things, if they lie about little things. Look, truth can be cruel. Honesty for no reason can be cruelty if that honesty is done with the intention of hurting somebody, okay? But that is still better than someone who lies. Because you can take your honesty and filter it in a way that does not resemble cruelty. But you can't make lying become positive. You can't filter that lie and make it anything else other than a lie. Next is jealousy and lack of trust. If somebody is jealous of you and has a lack of trust for you without you having done anything, it's a red flag, just period. And we all know this. I just love you so much and I'm just worried. I'm not worried about you, I'm worried about them. Like all this shit like that, like I don't want you around these people. I don't like the fact that you have these friends. That's a red flag. Like I don't care how you fucking dice it, how you fucking slice it. That's a red flag because you're trying to look at me through the lens of what that other motherfucker did. Period. And some of these things can seem reasonable. But remember, jealousy can still hide and disguise itself as love. It can still hide and disguise itself as caring about the other person. But really what it is, it's all fear. It's all fear that this person will find someone better or I will lose this person. But just remember, if you're someone who gets feelings of jealousy, if that other person was able to get what you had, then it wasn't yours to ever begin with. It was never yours to begin with. If somebody else can have what you have, it was never yours to begin with. Jealousy is fucking pointless. And if you have that, you need to unpack your beads. And if somebody has it with you, it's a red flag. Next is abuse. Abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. What's the other one? Financial abuse. Financial abuse is where someone threatens to cut off resources if you don't do everything that they want you to do. Any form of abuse. And unfortunately, a lot of times we will see certain indicators of it, but you will never know if somebody is going to be truly abusive until it happens, right? And we always like to victim blame. You saw the red flags and you saw this and you saw that. No, you saw things that you thought were okay. You saw things that you thought were normal. And it turned out to be things that led to an abusive character. Sometimes people didn't see shit. And as soon as that ring was on their finger, now you're getting your head bashed in between the fridge and the oven because the meatloaf was a little bit cold. Abuse is a red flag. Leave it. So, last thing we're going to talk about the foundation of how to build our relationships. To build our new relationships, first thing you got to do, you got to start slow. We just talked about love bombing as a red flag. You start slow. Think of it as laying down bricks for a fortress that will protect both of your hearts. And a lot of the times when we think about stuff like that, we think about the walls. We think about the things that we need to build to keep other people from hurting us. But the best way to build the foundation for the relationship, a healthy, positive, lasting relationship, is to build it in a way that is going to encompass and include the both of you and protect the both of you from the outside. A relationship is not a competition. It never has been. And it never will be. A relationship is never you against that person. A relationship is not about who brings more to the table, who does more for the other person, who is more this or who is more that, who is more affectionate. It's never a competition. A relationship is always a team. You always take that person for what it is that they bring, and you always try to make that person better inside the confines of the relationship, so that way when they go out into the world, they are their best self. It's that mindset that helps make relationships better, longer, and lasting. Thinking of it as a fortress to protect the both of you. Thinking as a relationship. When we talked about why relationships were important, we talked about the benefits that they had for our health. We talked about the benefits that relationships had for our mental health, our physical health, everything, right? When we think about it in that context, we think about the relationship as the thing that both of us are locked into, the thing that both of us are engaged in, the thing that actually protects the both of us from these outside influences. And communication is the mortar that holds those bricks together. Clear communication from jump. Telling somebody about your boundaries from the jump, being able to listen to somebody's boundaries, being able to respect somebody's boundaries, being able to listen without being defensive, being able to clearly communicate the things that you have, knowing that this is a safe space for everything that you got going on, whether the problem is outside or whether the problem is in here. Communication, and never underestimate the power of talking things out. Set boundaries early and clearly. Boundaries are the personal laws that they help love grow without overgrowing. Boundaries are the constitution, the mission statement of your relationship. But just remember that boundaries are not barriers. They are the liberties of love. When we think about these walls, when we think about our guard, right? When you think about a wall that you've put your heart behind, that someone else has to try to get over or get under or get around or get through somehow, right? Nothing goes in, nothing comes out of those walls. You're not good to anybody in that wall, and no one else is good to you. You have to think about boundaries the same way you would think about a house. Yes, a house is there for protection. Yes, a house is walls. But guess what else a house has? It has windows. It has doors. It has places for people to come in. It has places for people to look in. It has places for you to go out. And it has places for you to look out. It has places for you to decorate. It has places for you to build upon and improve. It has all of these different things that walls and guards don't have. And that is the difference between boundaries and walls. Because at the end of the day, when you come up to a wall, you can't get through a wall unless you really bust that shit down. But when you come to a boundary or when you come to a border, if you meet the required criteria, you can get through. You can go in and stuff can come out. That's the difference between walls and boundaries. And then the thing about communication is that when things happen in the relationship, when you come across new ground and new frontiers, things that you weren't able to say at the beginning, like, hey, you know what, that's something I don't like. It's not something I knew I didn't like from jump because it never happened to me before. But then when you did it like a year into the relationship, hey, yeah, I don't like that. That might be something we got to rethink. That might be something we got to take back to the drawing board. That other person has to be able to take it and not be defensive about it. And that's where we get back to the emotional intelligence. So many people just learn that being able to express their emotions is emotional intelligence. But then they can't listen to somebody talk about their emotions when they are the cause of those negative emotions. When they are the cause of that friction, they can't listen for nothing without being defensive. Well, if you didn't do this, or if you didn't do that, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Shit like that. That's why building emotional intelligence, being able to listen in love, is important. It's about having expectations, but it's also about having trust. And then most importantly, it's about having hope. Having hope, hoping for the best in the relationship, hoping for the best in that person. So now let's talk about our last thing real quick. I just want to leave you with this because we talked about why relationships are so important. We talked about red flags, green flags. We talked about how to engage in healthy relationships. We talked about all this other stuff. But just remember that you can always choose yourself. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's self-respect. You are the CEO of your life, and bad investments in toxic relationships will bankrupt your spirit. You don't have to give everybody a chance. You don't have to. But when you do give people a chance, Recognize why it's so important for those people to give those people a chance. Recognize why having the long lasting positive relationships are so important. So that way you can start to look at the green flags. You can start to filter out the people with the red flags. You can start to set up your boundaries. You can start to work on yourself and have that communication. Cultivate your garden though before you invite someone else into it. Independence and interdependence should coexist in a beautiful balance. But just remember that interdependence is a higher pinnacle of human achievement and living. All right? So there we go. That has been 3 Hour ABCs. The R, relationships. I told y'all this was going to be kind of deep. I told you this is going to be kind of heavy. It's like my first hour-long video that wasn't a book review. And I didn't even really scratch the surface, unfortunately, but I tried my best, and hopefully it helps you. If it did, let me know, man. Like the video, share your thoughts with me, share it with other people. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's your boy Tree. Deuces.